Hello and welcome to Foreign Dispatches, the program that takes you around the world in 25 minutes. I'm Teniola Shoboale. On the program this week, Israelis celebrate Easter free from COVID-19 lockdown. Plus, it's a different case in Brazil as the COVID-19 situation worsens. A year ago, Israel was locked down and families confined to their homes during Easter by COVID-19 restrictions. But this year, the mood is very different. And it's all thanks to the country's vaccination campaign, which has seen more than half of the population fully vaccinated.
A return to normal as thousands of Israelis flocked to shopping malls, city centers, parks and beaches as the country relaxed into a Passover much freer than in 2020. The Jewish holiday began on March 27, just 2 days after the Health Ministry announced that half the country had received 2 doses of the COVID-19 vaccine, a world-beating rollout. This time last year, Israel was locked down and families confined to their homes.
Look, today it's beautiful. It's just something that, we've been waiting for a long time. We've gone through 3 lockdowns now. There's always a 4th lockdown hanging over us. But, for now, we're enjoying freedom.
I feel pretty good now that everything seems to start opening. It's been a long time since we went outside the entire family. And it feels like we're coming back to life. It's very good. The kids had enough at home. They want outside.
In scenes very different from 2020, Jerusalem's Church of the Holy Sepulchre was open to the public on Palm Sunday, the start of the Holy Week. The mood was celebratory as scores of Roman Catholics passed through the huge wooden doors of the church, the site where Christians believe Jesus was crucified and rose from the dead. With almost no foreign pilgrims, the procession took place under Israeli COVID-19 restrictions with a limited number of participants. Israel began easing a nationwide lockdown late February. Most businesses and schools, as well as airports, have gradually resumed activity with caps on capacity. The fully vaccinated and the around 8.7 of Israelis who have recovered from COVID-19 with presumed immunity are issued with Health Ministry Green Pass certificates that confer access to various leisure venues. According to official data, Israel has seen an 85% drop in daily COVID-19 deaths, a 72% decrease in the critically ill, and 86% fewer daily cases since the pandemic's 3rd peak in mid-January.
England's stay-at-home lockdown order ended this week with people allowed to meet up outside in groups of 6 for the first time in nearly 3 months, though Prime Minister Boris Johnson urges caution due to rising cases in Europe.
Excited Britons dived back into the pool as England's stay-at-home lockdown order ended on Monday.
It's been crazy. I just can't stop smiling. I'm just really happy. Because I've been swimming since forever, since I was really young, and just being back where I feel comfortable, where I'm so used to, especially because I'm in year 11 with exam stress, I can just escape. It's fun. I've really missed it a lot, so I suppose I'm really happy now I'm back. I literally didn't sleep last night because I was so excited.
It's been pretty dreadful winter, one way or the other, weather-wise. Restriction-wise, fortunate enough, I'm normally a pretty optimistic sort of guy, but even I've been waking up in the morning feeling pretty glum, not been able to come here. So yeah, it's the start of something new. Hopefully, start of a fresh start now.
While outdoor sports facilities opened back up, people were also told they can now meet up outside in groups of 6 for the first time in 3 months. Lucky for Britons, warmer temperatures arrived a day after the stay-at-home lockdown order ended, and many took advantage, flocking to the beach.
It's great. It's fantastic. Yeah, we took a day off work today just to come down to the coast and have a good walk about and get some sunshine about us.
I think it's good. I think it's improved everyone's attitude. I think everyone's getting a bit down because of the whole lockdown, and now we can finally meet each other and actually interact with each other. It's actually brought everyone's spirits up, I think. It's a good thing.
But Britain's Prime Minister Boris Johnson urges caution due to rising coronavirus cases in Europe. warning that variants pose a risk to Britain's vaccine rollout, which is the fourth fastest in the world. The Prime Minister says he hopes that England will not need to go into another lockdown if the public obey the rules and coronavirus vaccines continue to be effective.
I don't see anything in the data right now that would cause us to deviate from the roadmap. But we've got to remain humble in the face of nature, and we've got to be prepared to do whatever it takes to protect the British public, which has been our approach throughout. What we don't know is exactly how strong our fortifications now are, how robust our defences are against another wave. And we've seen what's been happening. That's why I stress what's happening with our European friends, because historically, at least, there's been a time lag, and then we've had a wave ourselves.
Germany and France are among countries contending with a third wave of COVID-19 infections and hospitalizations. In Paris, the police reminded people to observe social distancing rules as they patrolled the streets of the capital. France's Interior Minister says 90,000 officers will be deployed over the Easter weekend across the country. Infection rates are climbing again, and patients are arriving younger and sicker with barely enough beds to treat them. With its relaxed COVID-19 measures, Spain's capital, Madrid, is attracting tourists from neighboring countries for the Easter holiday, but Spain's coronavirus infection rate has continued to climb steadily over the past week, suggesting a long decline could be in danger of reversing. And foreign tourism to Spain plunged 80% last year to 19 million visitors, its lowest in half a century. Even now, with an 11 p.m. curfew in Madrid and other restrictive measures around the country, many areas usually bustling with tourists and nightlife remain almost empty. Britain currently bans all foreign travel except for work, education or health reasons. With cases on the rise across Europe and vaccine programs slow, it's unclear if the continent's summer season can be salvaged.
While the likes of Israel and Britain enjoy the return to some form of normalcy, for some other countries around the world, things are still looking far from normal. In Brazil, which has recorded the second highest death toll worldwide from COVID-19, the situation is critical as hospitals are stretched to the limit and patients wait for bed space in ICUs.
63-year-old Jose Inacio spent much of his life ferrying the sick to a hospital in the quiet Brazilian town of Paratinga. Now, 1 week after entering that same hospital with COVID-19, the retired ambulance driver was buried in a cemetery just 2 blocks away.
All his life, he worked to save people, but in the hour that he needed help, there was nothing for him.
Inacio's son Roberto says his father died waiting for intensive care. He was just one on a long list for an ICU bed, but doctors told the family there were 70 people already in line. Bauru, the nearest major town, only has 50 intensive care beds, and all were full.
It's devastating. You watch a person dying and you can't do anything about it.
Across the country, Brazil's health system is buckling, with over 6,000 people waiting for an ICU bed, according to government data. Despite the crisis, President Jair Bolsonaro continues to ridicule stay-at-home measures. Recently, he told Brazilians to stop whining about the virus death toll, now over 300,000, the world's second highest behind the United States. On the front line, doctors in Brazil are exhausted, understaffed and under-resourced against the relentless tide of infections.
People have been talking for months about the risk of the public health system collapsing. Sadly, that moment has come.
Dr. Nicasio says the hospital he works at had 28 coronavirus deaths from March the 15th to the 23rd. All the patients died waiting to be admitted to an ICU. Beds are so scarce in Bauru that desperate relatives are turning to the courts, hiring lawyers to secure injunctions that will force hospitals, public or private, to take in patients. But lawyers cannot create ICU beds where there are none. Even private hospitals are struggling, sometimes begging the public sector to take patients needing intensive care off their wait lists.
For India, health experts say the situation is turning from bad to worse as infections surge across several states. But authorities are still hopeful that an acceleration in the country's immunization campaign can turn the tide.
A selfie booth for the newly vaccinated. Indians pose for photos after receiving their inoculations against COVID-19. After a slow start, India has ramped up its immunization drive, opening more centers, simplifying the process and turning to social media to spread the word. More than 3.2 million people got vaccinations on a single day last week, one of the world's highest rates. Authorities want to encourage more Indians to get the vaccine.
Took a selfie so I could show everyone that I came here and got myself vaccinated for coronavirus. I will also tell others to get vaccinated.
There's a lot at stake. The country, home to nearly 15% of the world's humanity, has confirmed more than 11.8 million cases of infection since the pandemic began. As infections surge across the country, officials say the COVID-19 situation is turning from bad to worse.
Remember, if the cases are more, they will eventually overwhelm the system. They'll put pressure on the system. The deaths will also occur. Even if it is low, proportionately low, the deaths will also rise. So we cannot accept the situation. We have to respond. If it is business as usual, we will continue to be chased by the virus rather than other way around.
This month, the country started vaccinating tens of thousands of people above the age of 45 in its biggest push yet against the surging coronavirus that has hit the highest daily count since early October. The country is currently using 2 vaccines, Indian-made doses of AstraZeneca and a homegrown one from Bharat Biotech. Meanwhile, the head of the Africa Centers for Disease Control says India's temporary hold on major exports of AstraZeneca's COVID-19 shot will undermine Africa's vaccination plans and could have a catastrophic impact if extended.
It will definitely impact our ability to continuously vaccinate people. The first wave of vaccines came in through COVID, and it was predominantly from AstraZeneca from India, from the Serum Institute. And if the delay continues, I really want to deliberately hope that it is a delay, not a ban, because that would be catastrophic if that was the case. Then meeting our vaccination schedule will become problematic, very, very problematic. I think that is common understanding that we wish that there's continuous supply of the vaccines from India, and we continue to engage with COVAX and lend our voices to the fact that this should not be happening because it will affect all of us.
India decided to delay big exports of the shots made in its territory by the Serum Institute of India to make sure it could meet local demand. The world's second most populous country aims to immunize 400 million people after expanding the program, which had been restricted to the over 60s and people with serious health conditions.
Myanmar's deadliest day since the military seized control has left people across the country in mourning. More than 100 people were killed by security forces last weekend as the country marked Armed Forces Day. Despite the violence, protesters are refusing to stand down.
After the bloodiest day since the February 1st military coup, thousands of people returned to the streets this week in towns across Myanmar, determined to show their opposition to the relapse into military rule after a decade of democratic reform. And once again, they are met with force. Protesters have resorted to defending themselves by firing projectiles and fireworks at security forces. On Saturday, March the 27th, according to the Assistance Association for Political Prisoners, a local monitoring group, more than 100 people were killed. The lethal crackdown occurred as the country's generals celebrated Armed Forces Day, with the military leader reiterating a promise to hold elections without giving a time frame. The parade was a show of force, with military vehicles, firepower and soldiers marching in formation. A day before, State TV had warned in a broadcast that protesters risked being shot to the head and back, without specifically saying the army had been given shoot-to-kill orders. As the country was rocked by the deadliest day of protests since the February 1st coup, a Myanmar national participating in a beauty pageant in Thailand made an emotional plea for help to the international community.
Today, in my country, Myanmar, why I'm doing speak on this day, there are so many people dying, more than 100 people dying today. I deeply sorry for all the people who have lost their life. The people from Myanmar, they are working on the streets for the democracy. I'm also the one who wrote in for the democracy on the stage right now. Thank you so much to the Mainstream International Organization to give me such a great opportunity to speak out my words through this platform to the international. I want to say from here that please help Myanmar. We need your urgent international help right now.
The defense chiefs of a dozen nations on Sunday issued a rare joint statement condemning the military's violent actions.
Today, we heard from the Special Envoy that there is a significant risk that the situation in Myanmar deteriorates further, with implications for regional and international security. Indeed, we're already seeing spillover into neighbouring countries, with approximately 3,000 civilians fleeing from Myanmar into Thailand this past weekend to escape military shelling. The United Kingdom is appalled and condemns in the strongest terms the actions of the Tatmadaw in killing its own people. These violent actions by the military are completely unacceptable and require a strong message from the international community.
The latest deaths take the number killed in the suppression of protests against the February 1st coup to more than 400.
Meanwhile, many ethnic rebel groups are split on whether to step in to support Myanmar's anti-coup protesters as the violence widens to draw in border areas. Activists say Myanmar's military has been conducting airstrikes in southeastern Karen state, forcing thousands of residents to flee into jungles and neighboring Thailand.
This Thai village is on heightened alert after airstrikes just over the border in Myanmar forced thousands to flee and raised the fear of armed clashes, following an escalation in the military's crackdown on anti-coup protesters. Fighting has flared in recent days between the army and rebel forces in the north and east. Armed conflict has steadily increased since the February 1st coup in Myanmar, with more than 400 protesters killed during the military junta's crackdown across the Southeast Asian country.
I have relatives there. I want to see peace. A lot of people have already died. I feel so sad for them. Some were so young. Sometimes watching the news makes me want to cry.
Myanmar has 24 or so ethnic armed factions, and they control vast swaths of the country. Most agreed ceasefires in recent years, but now many anti-coup protesters want them to join forces and take on the ruling junta. Yord Sek is a Myanmar rebel general from a group called the Restoration Council of Shan State. At his base in Chiang Mai, northern Thailand, he agrees with the protesters that the groups must form a federal army.
If the ethnic armed group's ideology is to protect their own people and the country, they should no longer be able to just stand by and do nothing. We now have one common enemy. We need to join hands and work together.
Other groups are reluctant. Vice Chair of Karenni National Progressive Party says the Myanmar military could use the involvement of rebel groups to their advantage.
Some protests are also hoping for the ethnic armed group to provide protection. Even in some area, they are calling to intervene, joining hands with the protesters to jump in. But we are still reluctant to do that because we understand where the situation.
Thailand has been accused of helping the military in Myanmar. On Monday, it denied turning back thousands of refugees. And in early March, the Thai army denied sending sacks of rice to Myanmar military units across the border after local reports surfaced.
Finally on the program, let's head over to Iceland's erupted volcano, which is fast becoming a tourist attraction. Since its eruption 2 weeks ago, thousands have hiked to the site to be awed by the rare lava fountains. Take a look.
The volcano, some 30 kilometers southwest of Iceland's capital Reykjavik, has become a welcome distraction from the COVID-19 pandemic for many. Some have even visited it several times since its eruption on March 19th.
This is my third time coming to the volcano. And yeah, I just can't get enough of it. It's like a music festival here to have so many people around. So yeah, I love it. I love how many people are here.
Some visitors were even pictured taking part in a game of volleyball. It's also been the perfect backdrop for photographers after over a year lockdown by the pandemic.
It's so crazy to actually comprehend that I'm here by the volcano, and I have to all the time remind myself that this is actually where I am, because I'm just looking through the camera and you just kind of forget about it. It's just impossible to comprehend. After 2020, it's kind of unreal really to be around so many people at one time, and I think for myself and for so many other people, it's just like a really nice experience to get to have this kind of social vibe really, and just kind of get out, and it really makes you forget about the whole pandemic and everything that's been going on.
To cope with the flood of visitors, authorities have set up a 3.5-kilometer hiking trail to the eruption site and are patrolling the area to prevent onlookers from going into hazardous areas polluted by volcanic gases. A long queue of cars has become a normal sight on the road, which leads to the volcano.
Amazing, like incredible. I've been here, this is my third time, and it's changing so severely every single time I come. So the first time you could go straight to the crater, so you could stand at the roots at the crater and you could be like at one with it. But very shortly after I came there, it started filling up with lava that hardened, so you couldn't go. Like it pushed us further away. Now it's a mountain. So it's insane. It's insane.
Volcanologists have no idea how long the free show will continue, saying it could stop soon or continue for years, possibly even decades.
And this is where we say goodbye till next time. Remember, our top stories are never far away. You can catch them on channelstv.com. Thank you so much for watching the program. I'm Tenyola Shoboale. Stay safe.